G'day fans and welcome to an all new DNA reviews where we talk about really cool stuff. We haven't been on the air for 4 months. I hope everybody's absolutely missed us. I'll tell you one thing I have missed. It is gas bagging with my lad, Mr. Aaron. Mr. Aaron, how you going, old son?
Well, I can't believe you've missed gas bagging with me because we chatted for 40 hours straight in the last week.
We are absolute suckers for it. What can I say? But yes, we are back, fans, to talk about, of all things, Docky
Who.
Docky damn who. And yes, everybody's loving it. Yes, welcome back to the old Docky Who. It is a very groovy. Welcome back. 4 months, can you believe it? And I thought, okay, we're past this show, no more ever again. And then Aaron says, we've got to do one on the new season of Docky Who. And I go, oh. So we have returned under much pain and distress. But I tell you what, fans, we've got so much to talk about regarding this episode. Aaron is like chomping at the proverbial bit. Is that right?
I am. I think you're wearing rose-coloured glasses to how this show returned. More like every other person in the shop says, "Dags, we've got to get your opinion on Docky Who." Nobody cares what I think.
Actually, that's actually a true story. One of the main guys who works in the store said, "Dags, are you looking forward to the new season?" And I go, nah. So for those who are watching, I don't know, people watching this live already know what's going on, but those who are watching this in replay, Aaron is like a super nerd when it comes to like Doctor Who, like absolutely the hardest core dude in the universe, right? Me, bulls the shit out of me. So you could be asking, why am I even on this damn show in the first place? My job is to push buttons and just go, yep, I totally agree with whatever you say because I really don't give a rat's bum.
So you're like the control sample. I'm the massive fan, and then you're the normal person who can look at the show subjectively. So I think that's why your opinion seems to be more valued than mine.
Oh, geez, what can I say? So we are talking about the old Docky Who, which is the most coolest thing in the universe. And, of course, the episode that came out was the Robot Revolution. And before we go any further, yes, there will be spoilers. So just be aware of that for anybody who hasn't seen the episode yet. I've got one important question for you, old son. Is it season 15, season 2, or season 60-something? What is it, dude?
It's too complex for one show. It's whatever you want. Probably if you start from the 60s, it's season, 50-something. If you're starting from when it came back, it's 15. If you're starting from when they rebooted with Disney, it's series 2. But we are here to talk about the Revolution.
We are indeed. And we're not talking about Prince and the Revolution either. I do like this one from Christy. Yeah, it is actually a kind of laxative for me. Yeah, so I have to cleanse myself after these episodes. But yeah, I'm just seriously, because last season it was 14. So I would have assumed it was 15, but I'm seeing this being listed as season 2. And I'm so confused, mate.
Yeah, it's season 2 on Disney, season 15 of the reboot on BBC and ABC. We missed you guys too. And season, they ended at 28, 26. So it's 26 and 15 is like 41 or something, 51. Yeah, too many.
Maybe the confusion in just the titling alone is enough to say, well, maybe the whole show itself is all a bit higgledy-piggledy. Now, for those who've never watched this before and want to know how this format or how the format of this show works, we break it down, or Aaron does at least, into the good and the bad and the ugly regarding the shows. And for those who are wondering what the ugly is, it's more just questions and theories and thoughts and views. So we do cover off positives, negatives, and those things that just bring up a lot of questions. So we're not here to bag the crap out of it. Or give it the gush fest. It's a little bit of everything. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
Absolutely. And anyone who wants to throw in a comment as we go along, we'll probably ignore it unless it's a super funny one or super insightful.
Absolutely true on that one. All right. So is there anything you want to say before we kick off the goods, Mr. Aaron, regarding the Robot Revolution?
No, just like, again, last season, the anticipation coming up to this season was quite high in the shop with a lot of people looking forward to it. So does it live up to expectations? Let's take a deep dive in and see.
Well, one thing I will confirm, fans, now, as Aaron said, we saw this on Saturday night together. So the first time Aaron and I have actually ever watched this episode together. You've watched it 5 times, is that right?
Yeah, I've watched it 5 times only because I watched it with you, with Tennille, with Kale, and then a couple of times to put the show together.
Very cool. And I've only just seen it the once when we first saw it on Saturday night. And the funny thing was that Aaron had his dinner in front of him. And while cool stuff was happening on the screen, I was glancing across, thinking, oh, what does he think of that bit? And he's too busy feeding his face. I go, he's tuned out of the show already. It's the first episode of season 15 to 6,000. and he's just like too busy worrying about his bloody dumpling today. I was like, what the hell, dude? You should be like zoned in with this.
I was zoned in. I just knew I was going to watch it 5 more times anyway, so it didn't really matter so much.
Very cool. All right, let's kick off for some good. So, dude, I'm going to leave this in your hands. Tell me what's so cool about this.
So we're starting with the good, and we go through with the stuff that I enjoyed for the episode. And I do think a good MacGuffin or something that starts off the story or they're looking for was one of these star certificates. Now, I don't know if anyone has had one of these bought for them or they know about them, but there is a company called the Star Registry, which is not affiliated with NASA or anything official, where they have mapped the sky, and any star that doesn't have a name, you can buy it and name it. And on the Star Registry, you will own that star forever. So it's a great way of making money out of nothing, because you don't actually really get to own that star or buy it. But this episode starts on the assumption, what if you did? What if you did own it when you bought it?
So I've got a question for you. So if this is a star certificate, I can go and buy a star. Can I go out and buy Scarlett Johansson?
I think someone got to her before you.
True. I didn't mind this part actually, where the guy's interested in Belinda. I know the girl's name at least, and gives it the certificate. And I thought that was actually kind of cool. We didn't know where it was going to lead. One thing I did pick up on the show, it was unbelievably bright and colourful. I don't know what they're shooting on, but it was like a real overload of just visual imagery, and that's bad English. Just the vibrancy of it all. And of course, when we got to the visual effects sequences later on, it's like, bloody hell, there's stuff everywhere. So it did look like a bit of money had been poured into this, which I thought was kind of cool, Mr. Aaron.
And something we found out on our trip, which I don't know is around anywhere, the new standard for the show is it's shot in 8K, not 4K. So that's maybe why it was extra vibrant and looks extra good.
I like this one. It's not that type of star dag. Oh, yeah, thanks for pointing that out, dude. But you never know. If I had been right, people would just be going completely. I mean, how many people would want to buy me because I'm a star, but you're just not? So
You'd probably, Colin has already bought all the Avengers.
True. That's very, very true. Anyway, we're moving on. So that was a good bit. That was how we got started.
Okay, I did like the introduction to the new companion Belinda Chandra, who has been in Doctor Who before, but we'll discuss that later. The opening actually really reminded me of the introduction of Martha Jones, which was in a hospital, where the Doctor is sort of walking around and bumping into her, but also Donna Noble, where they did this thing where they keep just missing each other, which is what was happening in this episode. So I think they've gone and done a sort of greatest hits to introduce the new companion. She is not a doctor, though. She is a nurse. So now you've got the doctor and the nurse.
Very, very cool. And how's this for a low blow, right? 1 cent for me. And I bet Christy will be asking for change as well. So, yes, very cool. So doctor and a nurse. So you've actually got a little bit of medical stuff going on there. And of course, it all goes to complete crap for poor old Belinda. Is that right, dude?
Yeah, but that's what I'm not talking about with these shots. I actually thought, and I would like your opinion on this, I thought this episode was really, really well directed. They did some transitions between shots. The doctor turns all the lights off in a building, and when it's dark, it goes to a fridge opening. And then there's almost a close encounters type scene, which as a kid, I think would be quite scary, where there's the Venetian blind lighting and the girl, as you can see in the bottom, looking through the blinds and looking quite small compared to what's coming through outside. I thought all through this episode, it was directed particularly good, where you could get a sense of scale and scope and where everyone was. And the colours, like you said, were amazing too. What did you think about the direction for this episode?
Based on my limited experience with the episode, it seemed fine. There were things we did discuss this probably later on. There were some twists in the story I really worked for me. But there were some things that didn't. But I understand where you're coming from regarding this, because you don't really know what the aliens are. You don't really know what's happening. And you are right. Some of the shots are evocative of plenty of sci-fi horror movies and alien invasion movies and whatever else. Whenever there's an alien invasion, effectively, and in this case, Belinda gets kidnapped by the robots, how do they react? Do they actually react with a bit of common sense? Do they go completely like Burko with screaming and yelling and carrying on, or she's just trying to figure out what's happening? So they had a really nice balance, I thought, regarding her reactions to the entire thing, which was very, very groovy. And of course, she gets grabbed by the robots, which leads us into this bit.
So the good, and this comes into the direction as well. There's a sequence in it where the Doctor is almost talking in code, and when this kind of things happens, sometimes you can lose the audience because it was sort of a complex thing to get across, especially to kids. And the way it was directed, where the robots can only hear don't hear every eighth word or every ninth word,
Ninth.
so they can get a message through, was really well done. Where you see the shot or the sequence play out where you hear the words, but then they play it back with close-ups of each word, so anyone who didn't work it out can get a clear idea of what was happening. But I think the cool thing was you had Belinda, who is like the audience trying to work it out, now counting the words on her fingers as she goes along so she can work it out. So she is really acting as the audience member, working it out as they go along. Of course, that whole idea is bullshit, because what if one robot walks into the room halfway through a sentence? Then they aren't hearing the same sequence of 8 words. So it's a nice idea, but it doesn't really work in real terms.
Now, two things. I like this one. Colin said the BBC are now playing doctors and nurses. That's actually very, very clever. Now, you were going to count all the dialogue to see if they got their 9 words correct. Was that correct, or did they just muck it up?
It worked with the robots. I couldn't make it work later in the episode with the AI. So I don't know if they only did it for the robots, but the same thing worked there. And then the other thing is, as soon as they did that sequence, they didn't rely on that anymore in front of the robots anyway. So it was only to set up the revolution part. And then the AI, the Doctor points out the same thing is happening, where he can only get 1 word out every 8 cycles. And I was counting that, and it didn't make any sense to me beyond the first message that they said he said.
Okay. At the time, I said to you, why? Like, try and explain why would the robots not hear the 9th word? How does that work?
It's because the AI is operating on some kind of repeat algorithm, and every time it flips back to 1, you can get 1 word in or something like that. And I guess because the algorithm or the AI or Alan is controlling the robots, they have the same form of communication issue. Doesn't really explicitly explain it with the robots, though.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to get you to move a fraction across the move your camera a little bit to your left, please, just so you're nice and straight. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was good that when they did the re-editing, they showed, yeah, okay, there's sentences being made out here, and that kind of worked. There were some good moments where they did really think of, we need to re-edit it just so have those flashback moments so the audience is on top of what's happening, and that kind of worked. I just thought it was just weird. It's like, oh, they can't hear the 9th word. And as you said, if a robot walks in halfway through word number 6, the whole idea goes completely backfires badly. But it worked for the story. It was all good. I mean, I didn't register that when the Doctor pops in, I go, hang on, we just saw him a moment ago with a completely different hairstyle. And of course, they said 6 months has gone past. I thought, oh, okay, so 6 months for the docky stuck in this place must seem like an absolute lifetime. So, yeah, interesting.
Well, I don't know if you watched the Christmas special, but we just had the Christmas special where he's stuck in a hotel for a year. So this is one of the Doctors that's aged the most in his screen time. But that isn't relevant to this. Now, I thought this sequence was cool. Now, I don't know if this was done deliberately, but I noticed it straight away. They do a sequence where they suggest that Belinda is going to be merged with the AI, so sort of a marriage of technology and flesh. And the merging pictures that they have on the screen reminded me a bit of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy animation, but it was exactly the same sequence as when the Brainiac computer takes over the woman in Superman 3, right down to the last scene being a close-up of her eyes. And I've done a scene-by-scene comparison there of the shots, and you do see on the AI on these screens, Belinda slowly get metal and rivets put over her face, and below it, in the same sequence at the same time, you have the Robert Vaughan's sister in Superman have the AI take over her in the same way, and then it flashes to her hands, and the same thing happens in Superman, and then the last shot is a close-up of her eyes, and the same thing happens in Superman. I don't know if that's a homage or a coincidence or done purposely, but I thought that was really cool and saw it straight away. And I did lean across to you and say Superman 3, but I don't know if you were picking up what I was saying.
Mate, I've purged Superman 3 from my head, just along with Superman 4. I like this one. Yeah, MacGuffins, followed by what would be red herrings included in plot holes. Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting sort of moment with the show. We're still sticking with the goods. How about this one? This one I thought was actually a bit of a ripper.
So this one, I don't know if you're going to guess what this is, but you've already mentioned it. The money looked on the screen for this one. It was a
Yeah.
very colourful episode. Yes, it's all CGI, but boy, it's high standard. And as I said, it's rendered to a very high definition. And there is a fantastic different amount of locations and colours, and they all look impressive. Yes, for someone who looks out for these things, you can tell straight away they're on a green screen and it's got all CGI backgrounds.
Mm.
But if I was a kid, this would have probably blown me away, and I'd have been totally sold that they were on a different planet, and all of these locations look great.
Yeah, it looked like a lot of money was poured into this, a lot of visual effects, a hell of a lot. And you are right. Yeah, the thing is, when you have super sharp imagery, digital effects look like digital effects. But it seemed to work for what it was. And I tend to agree with you. If you're a younger person, you really dial into it compared to, say, the Docky Who's of the 70s and the 60s and even the 80s, where it always looked a bit dodgy. At least you could see the money on the screen. And that reason, like when you got, I don't know, what's the name of the dude, the boyfriend? What was his name? Do you remember?
Alan?
Alan. I mean, his visual effects of his character, that looked really good, actually. And so you're thinking, wow, it's almost like Borg-like, it's like a chrome Borg. But I felt that actually worked really, really good. But yes, you can clearly see they've gone all out and gone completely nuts with the budget. So this thing must have cost a fair bit of money to put together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool.
So we're still on the good, and every single, cinematic or TV freak out psychedelic moment, I always think adds to anything, whether it's this or whether it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which I've slipped an image in there and you can see it fits in perfectly. I do think that's funny. Like if that had been in there, it would support my last season Charlie and the Chocolate Factory agenda. That's been in Thor Ragnarok and things like this. So I did think this was quite unusual for Doctor Who. You don't really get like psychedelic trip outs like this. The last one maybe is Claws of Axos. I could be wrong, and that's going back to the 70s. But I was impressed by this just because it's not something you see in Doctor Who very much.
Yeah, this was a bit of a bizarre one. It's almost like the wacky tobacco moment, and you go, oh my God, I'm completely tripping out. I must admit, in my other half, Lynn was watching at the time and going, what the hell's all this? And I thought, yeah, it's a bit of a sensory overload to a large degree. But I think they said, okay, when the two doodads cross, something has to happen. And they probably scratched their heads going, well, I don't know. What do we do? And the editor probably said, "Oh, I'll just shove some stuff together. What do you think of that?" And go, yeah, that's fine. It's like a 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stargate,
Yeah.
like as I said, wacky tobacco sort of mega trip. It serves the purpose, even though you got no freaking idea what actually happened. So yeah.
So that one, if you go back to that last slide as well, this is a bit of a negative for me. They actually explicitly explain in the episode if an object from two different eras touches, it annihilates each other. Yet they touch the certificates together, and when the Doctor pulls Belinda away, both of them are still intact. So I don't know what was happening there.
You know how you said some of the ideas may have come from Superman 3? Maybe they also took the idea from, I think it was Time Cop, where you had a dude from the past and a dude from the present, but they were the same guy and they couldn't inhabit the same space at the same time. Was it Time Cop? And if they touched, so you had the good guy and the bad guy, but they're both identically the same person in different time frames. And if they occupied the same space, all sorts of weird shit went off. Maybe it was inspired by that. So I don't really know.
That's
I like.
almost Sorry,
You go.
that's almost a Jack Pollack's bullshit or not moment. Is the new
Indeed.
Doctor Who inspired by old B movies?
Mate, Russell's going to go completely nuts at hearing that name. I agree with this one from Christy. It seemed like most of the budget went towards the electricity bills for the computers. Yes, absolutely. And it was as also, yeah, they got plenty of dollars to pay for it. So anyway, I'm not entirely sure. Believe it or not, fans, that's the end of the goods. The one thing I wanted to chuck in, I did like the twist, the fact that Alan was the bad guy. I actually thought that was kind of cool. It's like, oh, okay, he's the dude driving it all. So there were a couple of elements of the story that I thought actually kind of worked, which I thought, yeah, okay, well done, guys. But yes, so is there anything else you wanted to add to regarding the goods before we move on to the bads?
Well, firstly, I want to point out I really do like to highlight the goods. I do like Doctor Who, and I don't like sitting here and bagging everything about Doctor Who. But we do have the bads to balance it out, and I don't think it's worth making out everything is brilliant. So if anyone hates negative reviews and stuff, I love Doctor Who. I'm not doing it just to be negative, but we're going to take a deep dive into some of the negatives as to why I personally didn't think some of what was on the screen was great.
Very cool. And off we go.
So the bads. The very first picture there is the Doctor. And all through the last series, I kind of really liked Ncuti Gatwa's interpretation of the Doctor. And this series, it's kind of tipped over a bit for me. And one of the reasons it's tipped over, I don't think he's doctorish enough in his care about life. And I think in this series of Doctor Who was the first time I noticed where they were killing things as a joke. You can see when the Doctor first interacted in the hospital, he uses a sonic screwdriver at a computer and it shuts out the electricity in all the hospital. Now that's a bit of a ha-ha funny moment, but what about people on heart monitors and ventilators? What about people in operating theatres? What about babies in incubators and stuff like that? I don't think, a cheap joke is worth the Doctor seeming callous like that. And I said to Dags, another one of the jokes, and it's even made out of a joke because there's a little emoji of a cat face on the robot. The robots prove they're serious by shooting and killing a cat. And I said to Dags, oh, you know what this means? It means everyone that's shot by the robots will come back. It's not really serious because there's no way they can kill a cat on television and make a joke about it. But I was wrong. That cat stayed dead, and so did everyone who was shot by the robots. So I think the tone was really weird, and you've got this light and bright, fun episode of Doctor Who where the Doctor is literally dancing and like having a great time, and there is all this death going around him that has no consequence for him at all.
It's a good point. Straight away, Catherine, good to see Catherine's joined us. I think for the very first time ever, they had backup generators. You are right, but you don't actually see those generators activate. And it is a very good point. Even I didn't twig on that. All the lights go off. So even by the time the generators come on, how many people have carked at that point? Funnily enough, I thought the shooting of the cat worked, right? And I did like the fact that someone said it wasn't even their cat. You obviously don't see a physical cat die. You just said, we saw the picture, sort of disintegrates. But I thought the joke worked. But I see where you're coming from. And yeah, I thought that was actually kind of clever to show that the robots are actually quite serious. You can argue as to whether the robots look threatening enough. This big red bloody thing running around kind of works, kind of doesn't. It's all very, very bright and shiny. But, and as you said, with the emoji thing on its face, maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, depending on your perspective. But considering historically Doctor Who robots have always been a tad iffy, some better than others, I guess for this particular design, that to design them, make them, and put actors in them, there's a fair bit of effort put into that. So once again, it's all the dollars. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, for me, it's more the tone. If a cat died in Robots of Death, yeah, that's great because the robots are the robots of death. But in this one, it's more of a lighter tone. Anyway, we go on again to the death. There's a robot revolution and the humans fight back. Do they not know none of their weapons are effective? Does the Doctor, in the 6 months he's there, not upgrade their weapons so they work against robots? Basically, just about everyone who the Doctor's helping, the freedom fighters, dies except for a handful of people. And he really, apart from one person, has no remorse for any of that and doesn't seem to be upset. He does have remorse, and we're going to talk about it for one person, but he lived with all of these people for 6 months, and surely more than one robot who's harpooned could have been killed by other ingenious weapons by the Doctor, like the Doctor's good at turning the hospital electricity off. Why couldn't he use the sonic to turn all the robots off or something, or the AI off or something?
See, I loved it. I thought, mate, because so often in TV shows and movies, the good guys shoot all the bad guys, and you might lose one good guy, right? If you're lucky. In here, they're all getting knocked off, and you're seeing it on screen. And I thought, good on them for that. So, as we were discussing with young people earlier, they would probably be absolutely mortified. They're like, oh my God, these people are actually dying, all right? And I mean, they do vanish, so it's not like there's bodies all over the place. But I applauded them for it. And there was actually the dude, the hero dude guy, and he gets knocked off, and I go, that is cool. Normally it's your red shirts, if you will. There's dude in the background, he gets plugged, but these are actually speaking characters. That worked for me. I was actually and I like the effect, but they just sort of freeze in the air and they just disappear. So I'm sitting there going, well done for not being wusses and being afraid to show some good guys copping it, because it does emphasize just how dangerous this entire environment is. So I would actually revert that one back to being a good in my book. Like seeing good guys cop it, dude, putting it simply. So there you go.
Fair comment.
Yeah, exactly right. Anyway, we move on. More bads, mate. Bads.
Okay, then what people don't seem to understand, after Ruby, Belinda wasn't the next companion. Sasha was, because the Doctor lived with her for 6 months and built a friendship with her. And Sasha actually goes, get Belinda back to Earth and then we can go and travel in the stars. And then she gets shot. Greetings. So it's another one of those things where feel a bit cheated, because you're told they were friends for 6 months and then she gets shot, and this is the only person that the Doctor has a reaction to for getting killed. He would have lived with all the freedom fighters for 6 months, not just her. Maybe he has a special bond with her. That's fine. But you feel a bit cheated because you're told rather than shown that they had a special bond together. So she's the companion we kind of never got. And I feel a bit like it's emotional manipulation to do that kind of thing. Again, what did you think of that?
No, it didn't work for me. I tend to agree with you. It was a very, very superficial. It's almost like, so once again, for young people, they go, oh my God, he's really upset about someone dying, and yet doesn't care about everybody else. And just to clarify a comment here from Shane, I'm saying that he loved it. I just love Docky Who dudes getting knocked off. So that kind of worked for me. But yes, it was a little bit like they obviously had this connection, as you said. But as far as we're concerned, it's like, well, we didn't see any of that. And they could have almost had a montage. I mean, it would have been pretty sickly to watch a montage where he's sitting there as he's tearing up. You see all these pictures of they're running through fields together and having coffees together and, watching TV and sharing donuts together or whatever. But yeah, it was very, very basic, very superficial, and it didn't really work. So I tended to agree with you on that one. So yeah, bit dodge. Very cool.
And we get to the next part, which
she's a nice green agent.
We get to the next part, which I think really disappointed me, because the way television and movies are in general at the moment, it didn't surprise me that Alan turned out to be the bad guy. I actually thought Al AI and guessed it almost straight away. And you know how I did that? I've done it in a lot of movies and TV by going, he's the only white man in it, so he's going to be the bad guy. I've said it as a joke in other movies, and it's turned out to be true. So I hate that Doctor Who has fallen into that stereotype where it's the white guy who's a bit geeky that turned out to be the bad guy. But I also think it didn't really work with Alan, because they made out straight away that he's a socially awkward person who was probably out of his league with Belinda. And she is the one that gets him into, the problem that he's in. And she has no consequences for her, dobbing him in, and he dies.
Yeah, I didn't analyze it to that length of degree. I did find it a little bit annoying that he gets kidnapped by the robots, and in half a heartbeat he goes, "This is awesome! I'm going to take over and just rule the universe." It could have put up a bit more of a fight, but I mean, I like the fact that he was the bad guy. I like the fact that he was a bad guy, but the fact that he just gave into it so quickly, I thought, I think they had to cut corners. Short running time, just get straight into it. He turns into the baddie, wants the girl back, and off we go. Sorry, dude, what were you going to say?
I think they did the thing where they showed him playing a first-person shooter in his basement or in his room, sort of implying he's a bit of a loser and a loner, and then he gets to do that in real life, so he slips straight into what he's doing online. So I think that's why it went that direction. What you're saying about the show going through so fast, yes, except I think it was really unbalanced, and we'll get to that later at the end of the bads, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we're still stuck with them.
Yes, because I think the writing is what you have to blame for this being bad. At the moment, they're trying to get high ratings in Doctor Who because the series really is at the it could end moment. And I think Russell T Davies And you know what? He's a good writer, and he's a much better writer now than the first time he was around because he's done a lot of award-winning shows. But I don't think he's a better writer at Doctor Who. And I think when you are putting lines in it like this is the planet of the incels, where some of the audience are offended by that, and some of them can't believe it's in it, and other ones have to look it up. It means people who are involuntary celibate, which is probably a lot of the target audience that watch Doctor Who. I just think, leave that out of it because that alienates it from a section of the viewers. And Doctor Who should be for everybody. You shouldn't start taking pot shots at minorities or different people who might be watching the show. Now, I don't really want to go down that path and talk about that a lot, but I think this is one of the few times I've really groaned because they did it in the show. And it was the opening episode, and it was an episode that could be light and fun and enjoyable. And they did a few things that I thought were strange choices.
Yep, fair enough. Now, this one coming up, I totally agree with you on.
I actually, when I watched this with Tennille, she turned around and laughed at me because she knew last series one of the issues was the Doctor can't stop crying. And so this is why I think the other stuff with all the death is sort of hollow, because he didn't care about any of that. And then the show absolutely stops, and we have like a 30-second break where he mourns his friend dying. And that's not a bad thing, but it's not the appropriate thing that should happen at that moment in the episode. So we've still got the snag, the sensitive new age Gallifreyan, and I think we're going to probably see the Doctor cry in every single episode this series again, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the issue I had with it is it looks so fake, so put on, right? Oh my God, this person's died, and he sits there and it didn't even look real. And if you know anything about tears, they actually come from the inner eye here, not from down here. So it's like they'll put the old Vaseline in the eyes and out come the waterworks. It just ruined it. And we were watching it together, you and I, and even you said something at the time. And I thought, yeah, they're pushing the barrow too hard on this one. Oh my God, we're trying to make him like more like a human, and it just didn't work. It was, if anything, it was like, oh my God, seriously? It's like, come on, dude. The previous doctors would never have done this, to the best of my knowledge. So not good. And then of course he just switches off, and this is like everything just continues on as per normal. So yeah, that one didn't work for me either, I got to say. So yeah. I've got a question. I haven't even read this yet. Okay, from Russell. Question for you. Given the show Runaway, they do things now where Russell T. Davey produces and writes it, would plot flaws and questionable scenes like that be less likely done the old way with separate producer, writers, and script editors?
I think absolutely. There's stuff in this episode, I don't know if we bring it up later. I think we do, which is either continuity errors or deliberately stuff that's put in the episode as hints, but I'm more likely to think they're mistakes. But we'll get up to that later. Also, the way the show is run at the moment, Russell T Davies has introduced a slew of sort of new writers that don't have a lot of credits to their name yet. You can go and look it up. Out of this series, I think Pete McTighe is the only one that's show-run shows and written stuff. Everyone else has really written very little at all, which means when it comes to him polishing the episodes, he's got a whole lot more to polish. So there's less time spent on everything, and I think that's a bit of a mistake.
Very cool. Just quickly, Shane has said, yeah, there's no one to say, are you sure about this to Russell? So, yes, very cool. Anyway, we're still stuck with the bads. Don't forget, fans, there is the ugly still to come, so don't stress out. And yes.
Again, it goes to this whole thing, which really annoys me. Do we need every single companion to be a mystery box? We had just Ruby, who's her mom and all of that, and it took the whole series arc to find out, and then it was a massive disappointment because she was no one. And we've started again where the Doctor knows her and there's genetic stuff, and he's gone through her old life, and maybe she'll be important, and he knows like her descendants from the future. I'm calling it the Ace of Base companion because like last episode, they saw the sign, and it was like just a sign on the road at the end that disappointed everyone. And I look, I like the companions have something unusual about them because they travel with the Doctor. So he picks up someone someone who's like you or I, and then because they travel with the Doctor, something exceptional happens to them. I don't think the Doctor should keep bumping into people who are the impossible girl, don't know who their mother is, like splintered and fractured through time and all this other stuff. So I like when Rose joins the Doctor, she's normal and she becomes extraordinary. I like how Donna Noble is a normal person, and by traveling with the Doctor, she becomes a better person. I don't like someone's a superhero and the Doctor finds them and investigates them, because that isn't a common person on Earth. That's just fictional.
Totally agree with you. Christy said, mystery people are boring. Let them have their own healthy personalities. Yes, indeed. Yes, exactly right. Very good.
And what we were talking about earlier, or alluding to, when you said, "Oh, so much happened in the episode," it did feel like the first half of the episode was raced to and went from scene to scene. It'd be action, exposition, scene, color, action, exposition, and then they got into the TARDIS and it all ground to a halt. And it seemed they went into the TARDIS. I think I looked and it was 37 minutes in, and it still went for 10 more minutes with them talking in the TARDIS. And I thought that was just too much. I thought, they should have cut that scene down and maybe added to the earlier scenes. People might have loved that scene. People might have liked it. As I've said, I'm already disappointed that they're setting up this big mystery for her, and this is where they started setting it up. But I thought this episode they could have done more to explain the plot better, rather than set up this mystery with Belinda at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I thought this dragged, right? They're doing the whole pulling of the handle thing and the moving back of the camera, and it went on and on and on. It's like, what? Whoa. It's like, what the hell's, why is it taking so long? It's just, I didn't understand that. And you are right. It's like their main story. They've had to truncate it just so they can fit this extra bit in. It's almost like as an afterthought. And they said, this is actually important to the development of the character and the story and whatever else, but it just took too long. And I thought that was actually important time that they could have used for the main story and actually done more with that. Now, guess what, fans? We've got one more bad to go. So if you're waiting for something a bit more positive, sit tight for one more slide, because we've just got this last little bit.
Again, we have the episode end, and again, I don't get this. The Doctor can't land on Earth on May the 25th, which happens to be the day the last episode of the series is screening. What are the odds of that? But they're looking out. I don't know why they can't go back and land on May the 24th, because there's no deal with that and they just hang around for a day. But anyway, it's probably timey-wimey. But they're setting up another series-long story arc. And after the last one, I actually think it'd be refreshing just to have 8 good episodes that didn't all connect up. And you can watch the series and like episodes and not like episodes, and it's great. This thing where they all have to have a story arc with a massive resolution at the end is actually setting them up for failure, because there's so many fan forums and there's so many people like me that overanalyze everything. They can never actually satisfy that group of people who are the core group of people who kind of watch these shows. Now, I might be wrong. People might have loved that Ruby was nobody and there was no mystery at the end of last series, but I haven't met anyone who thought that was great. And this one is setting it up for the same kind of failure, I think. The other thing that I think is weird, the Doctor and Belinda are looking out the TARDIS and there is no Earth there, so they leave. And as they leave, you see all these iconic Earth monuments floating in space. Could they not see them when they were looking out of the TARDIS? Maybe they couldn't, but I just thought that was a bit strange as well.
So for those who can't tell, you've got the Eiffel Tower over there, the Statue of Liberty over here, the Star Certificate over there, and the Borg cube from Star Trek over there. Kind of looks like it, doesn't it? So yeah, absolutely fantastic. All right, so guess what, fans? That's the end of the bad. So if you've had us on mute for the past 20 minutes, you can unmute us now. We've got the uglies coming up, and the uglies aren't bad things. These are just questions, theories, views, mainly that Aaron sort of conjured up. As he said, he overanalyzes everything. So there's going to be some things here that may make people think, or they may just think, "Oh God, what a nerd." So what do you reckon, dude? Any final words on the bads before we move on to the uglies?
I think it's a bad, and I think it comes down to the episode being edited. I don't know if we discussed it at the time. I know I discussed it with Tennille. When the TARDIS rocks up at the end, Belinda goes, "So is this your TARDIS?" And through the whole episode, they haven't mentioned the TARDIS. The Doctor says the robots confiscated my ship and impounded it, but he doesn't mention TARDIS. Now, I don't think it's meant to be a hidden thing. She knows what TARDISes are, because when she enters, she's surprised it's bigger on the inside. And she's like, oh, you think it's wild out here? It's wilder in here. So she doesn't know what the nature of a TARDIS is. I actually think they edited something back earlier where he's talking about his ship and his TARDIS, and it made a continuity error. Could be wrong. She could be a hidden Time Lord, but I'm not thinking so.
Yeah, I thought that too when she said TARDIS. I go, how do you know what it is? But he did mention earlier that his ship had been confiscated by the robots. I don't know if she heard that or not, or whether he just said his spaceship or the TARDIS. I don't know. But either way, it's a nerd alert, nerd alert. Totally agree with you. So, but I picked up on it as well. I thought, hang on, how does she know it's a TARDIS? So, yes, fair call there as well. Very, very cool. All right, so we move on to the uglies, the theories and suggestions and what's going on in the world. Mr. Aaron, off you go, sir.
So I like to think that the whole story was inspired by a 1970s Jigsaw. The K1 robot, there was one robot in the 70s episode, Robot or Giant Robot, and they released a Jigsaw because it was such a cool such a cool villain. But the Jigsaw was on another planet with all these robots like shooting shit up, and the color scheme is very, very similar. And you can see I've merged the a scene from the episode with the robot Jigsaw on it, and it just fits in perfectly. So what a great place to start. And the robots did have the same voice as the Kettlewell robot, the K1 robot, which I thought was a nice nod to the past as well.
So I don't know anything about the K1 robot thing, but had this episode featured the K1 robots, would that have been like the coolest thing ever, or just completely shot down continuity?
Well, I didn't put it in the bads because we didn't have time. Robot Revolution, there were 5 robots in the episode. I would have loved there to be all these different classes of robots. We had the 4 main robots and then the one that was doing the cleaning up. I thought it would have been cool if there was all different types of robots in it, and they could have put a K1 in there or something in the background. That would have been awesome. Would have broke continuity, but I don't really care for a good cameo, you know.
Speaking of cameos,
well, this is, you know, a featured cameo. I actually like Mrs. Flood. I like to think she's living next door to Belinda. I like to think this is the back of her house. And wouldn't it be amazing if out the front next door was Ruby's family and out the back next door is Belinda's family? So I thought that was pretty cool. She's obviously going to be explained this episode because they've said she will be. Will it be a Time Lord? Will it be one of the Guardians? Will it be something else? It's going to be someone who we know from the past, I think. I think this is going to be a better reveal than the Ruby one. So I'm looking forward to that. And I like Anita Dobson as an actress, so it's good to see her in the episodes again.
It was one of the things that I thought, that's cool. Like the sushi popped out at the start, and I go, oh, well done, guys. Because I thought, oh, Aaron's going to be going, oh my God, Mrs. Flood. Is it Mrs. Flood or Miss Flood? Mrs. Flood, isn't it?
Flood. Yeah, I think it's
He's going to be completely, all these nerds are going to be losing their load. She's popped up yet again. Even I thought, yeah, well done, guys. That was very cool.
And she does turn and look straight down the camera and say, you ain't seen me, and like Harry's back into the house. So I liked that too. I'm used to it now, so I think it's a cool thing.
Yeah, she's a bit like a Where's Wally, isn't she? We're looking for her in every single episode. So just she needs a red and white striped vest. But very, very cool.
The other thing, I see a lot of echoes in Doctor Who. Now, the first words that the new Doctor had was, will somebody tell me what the hell is going on here? And Belinda actually said it in the same tone. It wasn't a mistake. She was directed to say it the same way. She goes, can somebody tell me what the hell is going on? And that goes right back to Russell T Davies' first time round, where Martha actually says the same thing in the same tone as well. Like, will someone tell me what the hell is going on? So I just like that. I like echoes and repeating things in Doctor Who. It's like one of those things that if you're a fan, you can chuckle to yourself, and it doesn't matter if you're not, you just see them. But I like seeing patterns in things that probably aren't meant to be there.
2 things. One thing I've got to comment on. Greg will go first. He said he's not a fan of the fourth wall breaking. We're watching from the viewpoint of some being that's true that she is actually talking to. Not entirely sure. Another thing, I would have listed this in the bads. When the Doctor first appears in the episode, he's wearing a kilt. Why would he be wearing a kilt? Was it a kilt?
I don't know. I thought it almost looked like a butcher's smock. And considering everyone died, maybe they were saying he's going to be a butcher in this episode. But I do think it's more that this Doctor seems to be a bit of a clothes horse. He's the one Doctor there is no costume. If I said to you, what was this Doctor's costume? You couldn't tell me. So I just think he goes with outrageous stuff. I think it might almost be a thing to try and stir the audience up and get people going, oh, he's wearing a dress. I don't care. If that's what he wears, he's an alien. On Gallifrey, they all wear dresses. I've seen those Time Lord robes, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
Very, very cool. And we've got to say hello to Killer Clown, who has joined us as well, which is very groovy. Sticking with the uglies, the images on the robots, mate.
Well, the images on the robots have happened in Doctor Who before. In the episode Smile, the Peter Capaldi one, they had these robots and their moods were shown by the emojis on their faces. So straight away, it reminded me of that. They were little diminutive robots that basically, if you weren't happy, they killed you. And in a nod to, again, the K1 robot, the K1 enters houses and stuff by basically burning through the wall and making a robot size, door for it to walk through. And the robots in this did that when they were at Belinda's house. So that, I think, considering they also used the same voice, was a homage back to the K1 robot. And there, for anyone that couldn't see them, I've pulled out some of the emojis the robot used. I think the hammer one was when they were demolishing the walls, but the other ones are all pretty self-evident.
Christy said regarding the kilt, it was a kilt and he was insisted to celebrate his Scottish heritage. I thought the Doctor came from Gallifrey. So make of that what you will. So very good. I move on.
This is just one of those little things I noticed. It must have been on purpose because we've had Kylie Minogue in Doctor Who and the Doctor singing Kylie to Rogue last season. There was a line where they have the blankets that are X-ray blankets, and the Doctor shows that he's alien and has two hearts. And Belinda says, "Do you have two hearts?" which is a Kylie song. And then the Doctor says, "Padam, Padam," which is also a Kylie song. Little things like that. Probably no one notices, but it makes me chuckle. The other thing that I didn't put up, which I should have put on one of the slides, when she opens the fridge, you see what the food is in there, and her food has gone off, and she goes to steal a bar, and the bar is called a Trek bar. And then what happens? She goes, "I'm being beamed up." And I do wonder if they put Trek bar because then they had a Star Trek reference. But again, it's one of those things that probably only I notice because I watch it too many times.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that at all. But no, very good. That's actually very groovy. So when she gets taken away by the robots, you got to have the whoosh as the ship takes off, which is very, very cool. Anyway, let's move on.
Lots of other things that image other things from popular culture. The Polish robot was very similar to the Gadget robot from Waters of Mars. Would have been cool if that had turned up on the planet. The throne room that they got Belinda to sit in, not exactly the same, but the actual shot and setup was exactly the same as the Emperor's throne room from Star Wars. The spaceship they used is a very old looking sort of retro past spaceship. It has that very classic 50s look to it, and it's almost the same as the spaceship from Tintin. Tintin.
The word you're looking for, dude, is rocket.
Rocket, yes. Rocket to the moon, Tintin on the moon. And the other thing it starts off with, and this whole series, and this does go into I think what Greg was talking about, what are we looking at here? Could this whole thing be fiction? It starts off with a lamppost, and there's a few popular culture things in fiction that start off with a lamppost. There's of course the lamppost in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and there's also the lampposts at the beginning of the Harry Potter movies where Dumbledore comes and takes the light for them. So I think lampposts are almost a signpost that something is fictional. So this could be pointing to Mrs. Flood as the master from the land of fiction or the god of fiction or something like that. I'm still going to harp on about that because there's a lot of clues through last series. So there's some cool little nods to other pop culture franchises through this whole episode.
Very cool. Regarding the kilt thing, celebrate the actor's heritage. I know I was just being facetious and a little bit cheeky, so very good. Very good. Anyway, we move on to the really cool stuff, dude.
The conspiracy theory. So we try and work out with the whole clues to the story arc, who's going to be behind it. So the only clues we've got so far is we've got the Statue of Liberty, and it's broken off at the same place that it is in Planet of the Apes. I don't know if you noticed that. So maybe it's the apes, Dr. Zaius and General Ursa who's behind it. Probably not. but there's wilder ones. The only movie I can think of where they bring down the Eiffel Tower is the G.I. Joe movie. So maybe the apes have joined forces with the Cobra Commander. And then the pyramid on the left, it's obvious. It's Sutek is back for more revenge. So we've got a three-way, team up with Sutek, Cobra Commander, and the apes from the original Planet of the Apes. Not the new ones, the original ones. And you know what? If they did that, I'd actually be quite happy.
I was going to say, didn't they bring down the Eiffel Tower in it was a Team America World Police? There you go.
Yeah, they did.
That's right. I was just gagging. There's a question here. Russell said, "Is the whole story is very much like an '80s Docky Who comic? Is that true, dude? Do you know?"
It absolutely is, and I've made the video on that, and I haven't dropped it. The very first thing, Russell, the new series when David Tennant comes back, which is why I think Mrs. Flood is going to be Astrobolus. He says, "Once upon a time, Lord." And that is the comic book story, Once Upon a Time Lord. And there are a whole lot of things they have mentioned that are fictional. Last series, they mentioned the tides of time, the hollows of time, dimensions in time. So a whole lot of stuff from other areas outside Doctor Who TV canon have been mentioned. And that's why I think in the Children in Need special, the Doctor says, time is ruptured and canon is breaking down. You don't talk to, yourself about your life as has canon. Canon is different versions of reality in fictional reality. So the Doctor actually says canon has broken. So you could be that's what I was thinking. It's going to be Astrabolus and it's going to be the tides of time and Polly the Glot and all of that. Only Russell is understanding what I'm saying here.
Yeah, I tell you what, dude, I'm ready to just have a nod off here. It's like didn't get any of that.
Well, the Doctor says canon is broken, and then the first story is Meep, that was a comic book story.
Yeah.
So
very good, very good.
Move on.
We're going to move along. Oh my God, you're killing me. Anyway, there's a Rani's TARDIS, dude.
Yes, the only thing we couldn't identify was there is a London cab in there, and if you zoom in really close, it might be real, or I might have fixed the picture, but it looks like it's the Rani's TARDIS. So maybe the Rani is behind it as well.
Very good stuff. Well, guess what, fans? That actually brings us to the end of all three sections, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which means the only thing left to do now is give ourselves some rotten Time Lords regarding the rating of this particular episode. And if those people haven't seen how we do it before, it's the old master meter. Is that right there, Mr. Aaron? Fresh on the nose, rotten.
And where you would usually want to get a higher score, the higher on the master meter it goes, the more rotten the episode is. So you'd want to get a lower score on the master meter. So where do you think this is going to end up, Dags?
See, I got no idea. Just quickly, Colin said it was a strong episode. Unfortunately, he couldn't not hear every ninth word. Very good. He's talking about us, actually, which is very, very cool. We probably sound better if you don't hear our ninth word. So how did it go, Mr. Aaron? You rated the episode after seeing it 5 times. I can't believe you even did that. It rated, I have no idea what that rating even is. What is it, dude?
So it's about a 3.5, which is, is getting towards a bit on the nose. It's not rotten. There was enough stuff in it to keep me interested. There's some highlights and some low points, but there's still a way to go. So I guess it's almost a middling score for the beginning of the season, and let's hope they get better from here on in.
Yeah, I'm sure plenty of people have said at least it wasn't as bad as Space Babies from last season, which was a bit of a horrible way to start. So overall, so you rated it as a 3, good in some areas, not so good in other areas. Is that right?
Yeah, I liked it. Like I the first thing I think I said to you was it wasn't as bad as Space Babies, but if Space Babies is the worst thing they've ever done in 60 years, that's not a glowing review either, really. I just thought it was a middling episode of Doctor Who. Strangely, the first series of Ncuti Gatwa, I either loved the episodes or hated the episodes. There wasn't much in between. This is the first in between one where you could watch it and it was enjoyable, I guess, but it wasn't a standout episode or amazing or anything like that. Was it a good introduction to a new companion? Yeah, okay. Was it a good season opener? It was a light and fluffy episode that started with an extermination of a cat.
Yeah. For myself, even though I'm not a Doctor Who fan by any stretch, I took it at face value. I said, I've watched it. I mean, under sufferance because of you. Some bits worked, some bits didn't. I'm not entirely sure about the whole brightness of the whole thing. As I said, that was like a bit of an overload. But I got to the end of it and I go, yep, I've seen it. But I'm not the target audience. You are. And most of the people watching us right now are. So I guess their opinions are far more important than mine. But there are, like we saw with the previous season, there were some really good episodes in that, like really good ones. So hopefully from here, it's just going to continue on getting and improving. And Belinda's the new companion. So see where the wind takes us. Is that right, Mr. Aaron?
It is, and she's getting home by the scenic route by the looks of things.
Yes. Yeah, that whole thing was, as we discussed, was a complete schmozzle. Take me home. Oh, we can't. We've got to go this way, that way. And, of course, as you said, the Earth has been destroyed. Well, that actually brings us to the end of the episode, which is a very, very cool. Before you go anywhere, fans, in case you're wondering who's actually sponsoring this damn show, it is your shop, Mr. Aaron. Docky Who Central at Aaron's Collectibles.
Oh my goodness, I'm sponsoring myself. What an egotistical thing to do. Amazingly, we have just done a cross-country trip to pick up an amazing collection of Doctor Who CDs. Dags can attest to this because I tried to play them to him all the way back from Queensland. We have 1,000 new Doctor Who CDs going into store. Who would have thought Big Finish made that many CDs and that you could fit them into the car? Apparently, it's only 2/3 of the collection because the collection we got, they stopped collecting 10 years ago. But it is a monumental collection of Big Finish CDs. I should have taken a picture to put it up, and they are going into the shop for the next couple of days. So if you're into your audio, now is a good time to check us out.
So two things about that. It's either 1,000 CDs or 1,000 coffee coasters. And on our drive back from Sydney where we picked it up, I said, if I chuck out a CD out the window every 1 kilometre, because it's a 1,000-kilometre trip, effectively, I could end up with like a sugar trail, a breadcrumb trail from where we picked it up right to my front door. I reckon that would have been pretty funny. What do you reckon?
Do you know what that would have done? It would have drawn all the Doctor Who clubs in Sydney and Victoria to your place. So I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly right. Totally agree with you. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out the Sci-Fi Zone socials. They're bloody everywhere now. It's freaking social media is just completely burko at these. Can't keep up with it all. So that actually brings us to the end of the first episode. Any final words before we buzz off for this week, Mr. Aaron? Because we will be back next Tuesday to yap on about Doctor Who a bit more.
No, just that I did see the anticipation of Doctor Who build up as it came back, and there hasn't been the sort of negative wave of people coming in and slating it after they did with Space Babies. So have to say this series is off to a better start than last year.
Very good stuff. And on that note, we're going to buzz off. I mean, I now have to purge myself of all this Doctor Who stuff that I'm forcing myself to put up with. See you next week, fans. Next Tuesday, we're back for episode 2 of season 2, 15 or freaking 50-something or 60-something. So make of that what you will. It is all good fun. All right, Mr. Aaron, I'm going to leave you to a party hard. Rock on.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, bye.